Hey everyone, Jonathan from Connex here. So we're going to go through a bit of CLI restrictions and CLI manipulations. So we'll start off by jumping straight into a customer. We'll go to we'll start off here by jumping straight into a customer. We'll go to my test customer. In here, we'll go to the routing section and we've got our CLI section here. Now, if you are trying to rewrite the CLI the way that it comes in, this is not the place for that. You can check out one of our other videos on perimeter normalization, and that's essentially how you'd get the number that comes into international format. So here is where we would do any other more detailed manipulations of the CLI. As default, when the call comes into the system, every single CLI is allowed to pass through. There's no restrictions at all. Whatever the customer sends is whatever goes out the other side. So let's say that we want to introduce the first limitation. The first limitation may be that we want to allow only a specific CLI through. So here we could enter. So I've entered in 441234567889. I'm not going to change any other settings. I'm just going to click save. Now, instantly, this account has been locked down and the only CLI that is allowed to be passed is this one here. So that's great. This is the only CLI that we're allowed to pass. Let's say we want to add in two CLIs that are allowed to be passed. We can just do this again, and we've got two CLIs to be passed. Something else that you may want to do is allow, say, these two CLIs to be passed, but if the CLI is wrong that the customer sent and it's not allowed, it can be rewritten to the default CLI. So if we click on force on this one, this top CLI now is going to be forced. So that means any CLI that doesn't match this one will basically be forced to this one. So what else we can do here is we can write some additional rules. So for example, let's say that this number here that we've got is classed as the main account number. So this is the main number that, or the billable number as the call hits the public network. One thing that you may want to do, or that your carriers may ask, is that you complete the P-Assert-ID. So even though this is the number that's going to be displayed, for tracing purposes, you may want to set a P-Assert-ID. You can set the P-Assert-ID to the main billable number. So we can still put that in there. And once we click on save, that means that this number will be allowed to be sent through, but it will rewrite the P-Assert-ID to make sure that this number's there. This is always good practice for traceability. So in our slightly more complicated scenario, we have a situation where the customer has a number block. Let's say they've got 10, or even let's say they've got 100 CLIs that they're allowed to send from. We'll use this as an example, and we can go in here and we're going to add this new block. So we want to say that this number that they're sending must start. We're going to use a bit of regular expressions here. So the number must start with this, and then the last digits we can just leave those off. This will allow any call to pass as long as it starts like this. Imagine that they don't own the whole number block. Let's say they don't own 100, they only own 50. So we need to specify what they have got access to. So we might say that they're allowed to access, 0 to 4 here. So this will basically mean that the numbers that they send has to start with this, and then either any digit from 0 to 4. So if we click on save, we've now got that extra rule in there as well. Okay, so let's delete these and we'll imagine a different scenario. So in this new scenario, we're interconnecting with a carrier, and this carrier can send any types of numbers. We can't restrict it down to any specific number set, but we want to make sure the number looks valid. So let's say that we're dealing with India, and the calls that get sent to India are of the nature of call center. So we want the number to make sure that it starts with 91. That's for the India country code. Then we've got from the TRAI's regulations, we have to have the number start with 140. This is for telemarketing purposes. So we will in here add 0 to 9, and we want that to be exactly 7 digits long. And then we're going to add another anchor here. So this simple rule here basically means that the calls that are going to come in through this customer are going to be calls that are going to go out and be presented with an India CLI, a CLI from India, and it's also going to be starting with the area code 140. Okay, so that's how we can put CLI restrictions on the customer side. But what happens if we've got a carrier who doesn't want to accept prefixes of a specific nature? If we go into our carrier section, we can go to our vendor and we can pick on a provider card. So in here, if we go to this provider card, we can go to properties and we can go to this advanced section. Now in this advanced section, we've got a box called CLI restrict. So this basically allows us to enter CLI rules here that can make sure that no calls that have got the wrong CLI would be passed to that provider. So if this provider would only accept calls to India from India, we could just put a starting correct here and 91. And when we click save, this means that this carrier will only be allowed to, or this carrier will only have calls delivered to it, which will be starting with 91. So we can be sure that there's no calls that are going to be sent to this carrier that haven't got the CLI prefix of 91. Okay, let's jump back over to the customer and we'll think about something slightly different from the retail side now. So we'll go back into our test customer. We'll go to routing, and now in the Connex system, you can give your customers a portal. They can log into that. This can be on whatever domain name you want. If you have a customer and you need them to be regulated, or you need to regulate their account, you need to make sure that any number which they're going to send, you need them to prove that they own. So a very simple way that we can do this is if we go to the edit section here and go to verification, if we click on approved CLIs only and click save, what this will mean is that this account will not be allowed to send any calls unless there is a CLI in here. So as default now, this account won't be allowed to send out any calls at all. They have to have the CLI that they want to send through here. So if we have 9123456789, that's the only number that will be allowed to be sent. But even better than this, what can happen now is the customer can log into their portal. When they log into their portal, they can click on Authorize CLI. When they do that, they can enter in their phone number. Once they've entered in their phone number, they can click Send. It will send them a call and it will play a message to them that contains a PIN code. They enter that PIN code on the screen and then the CLI will automatically be added on here. So the customer can do this 1, 2, 3, 10, however many times that they want, and they can basically make sure that all of their CLIs are authorized on here automatically, and there's no intervention on your part needed at all. So the last way I want to show you how you can manage CLIs. Here, first off, we'll delete this one, and we will change this account back to regular verification. So the last way that we can control which CLIs pass through the system is going to be a very, very flexible way. This is going to be creating something in our system called ScriptForge. So if we go to Developer and ScriptForge, we're going to add a new one. This is going to be called My Custom CLI Verification. We'll click on Save, and we've got this new My Custom CLI Verification in here. So in here, this is basically a sandbox where we can write our own custom JavaScript. So there's a few little things that you'll need to know in advance. So we'll write out a new function. So this is the function. So this is the function that's going to get called. In here, we're going to have some vars passed to us. And the particular var where the CLI is vars.routing.cli. So if we wanted to set a variable, we could do var CLI equals this. And now we have got access to this CLI and we can do any number of checks that we want. We could do something like if CLI dot index of 12456 equals -1, then we can throw new error and we could say 401 CLI not allowed. That's one way of doing it. You can choose whichever error codes you want to be able to be sent out, and you can choose the error reason that you want here. So what this would basically do is make sure that if the CLI has to have the numbers 4, 5, 6 somewhere, but this is a poor example to show for this. The real power of this is if we want to do something such as, let's do const Axios. So Axios is just a little tool in JavaScript that we can use to perform external HTTP requests. It just wraps things around. We can also use asynchronous functions here. And what we're going to do now, we will do var result equals await axios.get, and we'll just do a very, very simple one. We'll do HTTP, we'll do crm.mycompany.com, and we'll do number check. And let's imagine that we pass in number equals and then CLI. So this can do a request and it can hit an external server. That external server can do whatever check that you want. Once this information comes back, we're going to have it in result here, and we can just say something like if result does not equal OK, throw an error. And the last thing that we do want to do, we do want to return vars, because this basically tells us that we're going to continue with everything else the same as usual. This would throw an error. So now we're doing a check against an external system to see if that number is essentially allowed. Something else that you can do as well, if you didn't want to use an external system, you could build a number database inside and use a database inside Connex to help to hold a number list, and you could check to see whether that number is on there or not. That's probably more useful for do not call systems rather than checking the CLI, but that's again another feature that you've got at your disposal.